Welcome back to Tales from the Dark Room. Gather close and try to ignore the shadows dancing in the corner of your eye. Tonight, we delve into a story that has been whispered in hushed tones across the darkest corners of the internet. A story of a seemingly innocent toy that becomes a vessel for something truly malevolent. This is the terrifying tale of the Labubu Doll, a curse that whispers, hunts, and kills. Our story begins with Maya, a young artist who lived alone in a quiet old apartment building. She was a collector of oddities, her shelves lined with curiosities from flea markets and antique shops. But nothing could have prepared her for the package that arrived one Tuesday, just as the clock struck midnight. There was no knock, no ring of the doorbell. It was simply there, a plain brown box sitting on her doormat, with no return address, no sender, just her name scrawled in an unsettlingly neat hand. Curiosity overpowering her caution, Maya brought the package inside. The air in her apartment seemed to grow colder as she sliced through the packing tape. Inside, nestled amongst layers of black tissue paper, was a doll. It was a Labubu with its characteristic long ears and impish design. But this one was different. Its oversized glassy eyes seemed to follow her every move, and its wide painted grin felt less like a smile and more like a silent, knowing sneer. It was unnerving, but Maya, ever the collector, dismissed the feeling as a trick of the light. She placed it on a shelf in her studio, amongst her other strange treasures, and thought nothing more of it. It was just a toy, after all. That night, the whispers began. It started as a faint murmur, like the sound of a distant radio, almost indistinguishable from the old building's groans and creaks. Maya, half asleep, tossed and turned, pulling the covers tighter around her. She assumed it was just the wind or a neighbor's television, but the sound grew more distinct, morphing into a soft, sibilant whisper that seemed to slither into her ear. It spoke no clear words, just a chilling, incoherent stream of sounds that made the hair on her arms stand on end. She sat bolt upright, her heart hammering against her ribs. The room was empty. The whispering stopped. Shaken, she convinced herself it was a nightmare, a product of a tired mind. The next morning, an uneasy feeling lingered. As she walked into her studio, coffee in hand, she noticed something was wrong. The Labubu doll was no longer on the shelf where she'd left it. It was sitting on her artist's stool, facing the easel, where her half-finished painting stood. Its head was tilted as if critically observing her work. A cold dread washed over her. Had she moved it in her sleep? She couldn't remember doing so. She cautiously picked it up. The vinyl felt strangely cold to the touch, and placed it back on the shelf, this time wedging it firmly between two heavy books. It wouldn't be going anywhere. But the strange occurrences escalated. Objects began to move on their own. Her paintbrushes, meticulously arranged by size, would be found scattered across the floor. The lights in her apartment would flicker and die, plunging her into sudden suffocating darkness, only to flare back to life moments later. And each time something happened, she would find the Labubu doll in a new location. Once, it was perched atop her television, its grinning face reflected in the dark screen. Another time, it was sitting in the middle of her kitchen table, a single deep scratch carved into the wood beside it. The whispers grew louder each night, clearer. They were no longer just sounds, they were words, her name, repeated over and over in a dry, rasping voice. Maya. It was a sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Sleep became a luxury she could no longer afford. Her days blurred into a haze of caffeine and fear. She tried to get rid of the doll. She threw it in the dumpster behind her building, watching as it disappeared beneath bags of trash. That night she slept soundly for the first time in a week, but when she woke up, her relief turned to pure, undiluted terror. The Labubu doll was sitting at the foot of her bed, its eyes gleaming in the dawn light. It was dusty and stained from the trash, but its grin was wider than ever. Panic set in. She tried everything. She buried it in a park miles away, but found it sitting on her doorstep the next morning. She locked it in a safe deposit box at the bank, only to come home and find it waiting for her on her pillow. The doll was a part of her life now, a silent, grinning tormentor. The whispers became more malicious, no longer just her name, but taunts, threats, secrets from her past she had told no one. It knew her fears. It fed on them. Her friends grew concerned. They saw the dark circles under her eyes, the way she flinched at every sound. She tried to explain, to show them the doll, but whenever someone else was around, it remained perfectly still, just a toy. They told her she was overworked, stressed, that her imagination was running away with her. She was alone in her terror. The final night came without warning. Exhausted beyond measure, Maya finally succumbed to a deep, heavy sleep. The whispers did not wake her this time. There was only silence, a deep, profound silence that was somehow more terrifying than the noise. Then, a pressure, a weight on her chest that made it hard to breathe. Her eyes fluttered open, struggling to adjust to the pitch black of her bedroom. And then she saw it. Two glassy eyes stared down at her, inches from her face. The Labubu doll was sitting on her chest, its cold plastic hands resting on her collarbones. Its painted grin seemed to stretch impossibly wide in the darkness. The silence was broken by a single, clear whisper, not in her ear this time, but spoken directly into her face, its voice a dry, chilling rattle. "Now you are my toy." Maya opened her mouth to scream, but no sound came out. The last thing she saw was that terrible smiling face leaning closer and closer until it filled her entire world. This has been Tales from the Dark Room. If you ever hear whispers in the night, or find a cherished object is not where you left it, remember Maya's story. Remember the grin of the Labubu, and pray that what you're hearing is just in your head. Until next time, sleep well, and keep the lights on. Thank you for listening. If these tales from the dark intrigue you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. You never know what might be lurking in our next story. Stay safe out there.